They say some schools are never truly empty. When the last student leaves, when the lights go out, when the gates are locked, something stays behind. This story was recorded from fragmented testimonies, unofficial documents, and the final notes of a night guard whose name no longer appears in any record. No photographs remain. No reports were ever finalized. All that exists are the bells that still ring at night, and a classroom that continues to take attendance. This is the story of night school. Chapter 1. The shift at 11:47 p.m. Wat Sang Arun Secondary School was loud during the day. The kind of loud that felt alive, students shouting across corridors, teachers tapping chalk against blackboards, footsteps echoing endlessly on concrete floors. But at night, the school became something else entirely. It wasn't just quiet. It was hollow. Somchai began his night shift at exactly 11:47 p.m. The time itself felt wrong, too specific, too deliberate. The previous guard had always requested a change before this hour, making vague excuses about family matters or sudden illness. Somchai never asked why. In his line of work, questions often led to answers you didn't want. As the heavy iron gate slid shut behind him, the metallic clang echoed across the empty courtyard longer than it should have. Somchai paused, his hand still resting on the cold bars. For a brief moment, he had the unsettling sensation that something else had been locked inside the school along with him, something that had been waiting patiently for night to fall. The wind passed through the old classroom buildings, forcing wooden doors to creak and groan. It didn't sound like the random noise of aging structures. It sounded intentional, almost rhythmic, like a whispered language trying to remember how to speak. Somchai adjusted his flashlight and began his routine patrol. The moonlight revealed cracked pavement, dead leaves gathered in corners that never seemed to change, and long windows staring back at him like unblinking eyes. Every classroom was dark, every door was closed, all except the building at the far end of the campus. Building C. It stood slightly apart from the others, older, neglected, its paint peeled away by years of humidity and heat. Officially, it had been sealed for over a decade. Unofficially, Somchai had been told to avoid it if possible. At 12:30 a.m., as he reached the center of the courtyard, a sound cut through the air. Ding, dong. The school bell rang. Somchai froze. It wasn't loud, but it was clear, clearer than any mechanical system that old should have been capable of. The sound came from Building C. His radio crackled with static, then went silent. Somchai swallowed. He reminded himself that old wiring could malfunction, that abandoned systems sometimes activated on their own. Still, his heart beat faster as he looked toward the dark silhouette of Building C. Behind one of its windows, a faint fluorescent light flickered on. And for the first time since starting his shift, Somchai realized something deeply unsettling. This school was never supposed to be awake at night. Chapter 2. A school with no night classes. By the end of his first week, Somchai began to notice something that didn't sit right with him. Wat Sang Arun Secondary School had no night classes. This wasn't an assumption, it was a fact. During his evening rounds, Somchai checked the administrative board near the teacher's office, schedules, notices, old announcements pinned beneath layers of yellowing tape. Every class ended before sunset. No tutoring sessions, no remedial programs, no clubs, nothing officially existed after 6 p.m. Yet every night, without fail, the bell rang at exactly 12:30 a.m. The sound was always the same, short, sharp, unmistakable, not distorted, not broken, perfectly timed, as if someone were still following a schedule that no longer applied to the living. Somchai tried to ignore it the first few nights. He told himself that the school was old, that electrical systems often behaved strangely in buildings this age. But deep down, he knew the truth felt heavier than faulty wiring. On the 6th night, curiosity won. He walked toward Building C. The closer he got, the colder the air became. Not dramatically so, just enough to make the hairs on his arms rise. The building smelled wrong, not like mold or dust, but like something sealed away for too long and never given a proper farewell. The doors were still locked, thick chains wrapped tightly around the handles, rusted but firm. A warning sign hung crookedly from one of the links. No entry, structural damage. Somchai shined his flashlight through the narrow gap between the wooden panels. Inside, the hallway lights were on. Long fluorescent tubes flickered above the corridor, casting pale reflections across the tiled floor. Desks were neatly aligned inside the classrooms. Chairs pushed in, blackboards wiped clean, too clean for a place that had supposedly been abandoned for years. Then he saw them. Shadows. They sat motionless behind the classroom windows, arranged in rows, heads lowered, backs straight, hands resting on desks, as if waiting for instruction. Somchai counted without meaning to. 1 row, 2, 3. Too many to be random, too still to be alive. The bell rang again. This time, it sounded closer, louder, like it was calling something to begin. Somchai stepped back, his breath shallow. He didn't feel watched. He felt expected. That night, as he returned to the guard room, a single thought echoed in his mind, refusing to fade. If there were no night classes at this school, then who was attending them?
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.
Chapter 3. Building C. From that night on, Building C stopped being just another abandoned structure at the edge of the campus. It became a presence. During the day, Somchai tried to observe it from a distance. Sunlight made the building look harmless, old, cracked, forgotten. Students passed by it without a second glance. Teachers avoided the area out of habit, not fear. Nothing seemed wrong. But night stripped away the illusion. At exactly 12:25 a.m., every night, the air around Building C changed. The temperature dropped just enough to be noticeable. The wind slowed, as if even it hesitated to move too freely near that place. At 12:30 a.m., the lights came on. Not all at once, one by one. Hallway first, then classrooms. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly, casting a dull white glow through dusty windows. The building looked awake, more alive than the rest of the school combined. Somchai approached closer than before, stopping just outside the chained entrance. The chains were cold, colder than metal should have been in tropical heat. His flashlight beam shook slightly as he moved it along the hallway beyond the doors. Everything inside was orderly. No overturned desks, no debris, no signs of panic or decay. The floor had been swept, the boards erased, chairs tucked in with care. It looked as though the building was being used, maintained by hands that did not exist. Then Somchai noticed something new. On the blackboard of classroom C3, faint white marks appeared, as if chalk had been pressed lightly and wiped away in a hurry. He leaned closer to the glass, squinting. The words were still there. Attendance. Below it, rows of lines, spaces where names should be written. Behind the glass, silhouettes sat perfectly still. Their outlines were clearer now. Uniform collars, short haircuts, long hair tied neatly back. Every shape suggested discipline, obedience. Students. Somchai raised his radio to call for help. Only static answered. As he lowered the radio, one of the figures inside the classroom slowly lifted its head. Just slightly. Not enough to see a face. Enough to acknowledge awareness. Somchai stumbled back, his heels scraping loudly against concrete. The sound echoed unnaturally, bouncing off walls, returning to him delayed, as if the school itself needed time to process the noise. The figure's head lowered again. The bell rang. Not the usual bell. This one was longer, deeper, like the signal for something important. Somchai realized then that Building C was not abandoned. It was operational. And whatever happened here every night was following rules older than the school itself. Chapter 4. The Gradebook. The guard room smelled of old paper and stale coffee, comfortingly ordinary. Almost enough to convince Somchai that nothing strange was happening outside. Almost. That was when he noticed the book. It sat on the lowest shelf beneath the desk, wedged between a broken flashlight and a stack of outdated maintenance reports. Its cover was thick, dark brown, the corners rounded by years of handling. On the front, faint Thai lettering had nearly faded away. Student Record Book. Somchai frowned. He had cleaned this room dozens of times. He was certain the book hadn't been there before. He picked it up. The pages were brittle, yellowed, and filled with careful handwriting. Columns of names, student numbers, grades, attendance records. Everything looked official, painstakingly neat, as if written by someone who valued order above all else. Then he noticed the ink. Most of the names were written in black. Some were written in red. And every name written in red had a thick line drawn through it. Somchai scanned the dates at the top of the pages. 15 years ago. The year matched the rumors he had overheard. The year Building C had been closed, for safety reasons. He flipped page after page, his breathing slow and controlled. The red names stopped abruptly. Below them, newer entries appeared, also written in red, but these names were not crossed out. Somchai felt his throat tighten as he recognized one of them. A name he had seen carved into a desk in classroom C3. Another he had heard whispered in the hallway when no one was there. They weren't historical records. They were current. The attendance column beside those names was marked with a symbol he didn't recognize, small circles filled in completely. Repeated night after night. Present. 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 A sudden chill crept up his spine. Slowly, Somchai turned the last page. The final line was blank. No name. No student number. Just an empty space, waiting. At that exact moment, the bell rang again. Not from outside. From inside the guardroom. Somchai spun around, heart pounding. The intercom speaker above the door crackled to life, emitting a low, distorted sound, like breathing pressed through a broken filter. Then a voice followed, calm, female, authoritative. Attendance will be taken shortly, it said. The book in Somchai's hands felt heavier than before, as if it were no longer just paper and ink. As he stared at the blank line, a terrifying realization settled in his chest. The class was still being updated. And sooner or later, someone was going to fill in that final name.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.
Chapter 5. The Faceless Teacher. Somchai did not sleep that morning. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the blank line in the gradebook, wide, patient, waiting. He tried to convince himself it was a cruel joke, some leftover prop from an old administrative office. But deep down, he knew books did not appear out of thin air. Voices did not come through broken intercoms. And abandoned schools did not take attendance. That night, he arrived early. At 12:12 a.m., Somchai stood at the edge of the courtyard, staring toward Building C. The lights were already on. That had never happened before. They usually waited until 12:30. Always precise, always obedient to a schedule he didn't understand. Tonight, they seemed eager. The air felt thick, pressing against his ears, muffling distant sounds from the street beyond the school walls. Even the insects had gone silent. Then he heard it. Footsteps. They were slow, measured, echoing along the second-floor corridor of Building C, not the shuffle of students. Not the uneven pace of something lost. High heels. Each step landed with deliberate authority, sharp against tile, followed by a faint dragging sound, fabric brushing the floor. Somchai's legs refused to move, but his eyes stayed fixed on the windows. A woman appeared at the end of the hallway. She wore a traditional Thai teacher's uniform, cream-colored, perfectly pressed. Her posture was rigid, professional. One hand held a stack of papers. The other rested calmly at her side. She stopped beneath a flickering fluorescent light and turned her head. Where her face should have been, there was nothing. No eyes. No mouth. No skin. Just a smooth, dark void, like a chalkboard erased too many times, absorbing all light that touched it. Somchai's breath caught painfully in his chest. The woman lifted her hand and tapped the papers once, twice, as if signaling for silence. The movement was practiced, something she had done countless times before. The bell rang. From inside Building C, chairs scraped against the floor in unison. The faceless teacher raised her head slightly, as though listening for confirmation. Then she spoke. Class will now begin. Her voice came from everywhere at once, hallways, walls, Somchai's own skull. And for the first time since taking the job, Somchai understood a truth far worse than fear. The students were not trapped there. They were still enrolled. Chapter 6. Full attendance. Somchai didn't remember deciding to move. One moment, he was standing in the courtyard, frozen beneath the pale glow of the security lights. The next, he was closer to Building C, close enough to see the dust trembling on the windows with each faint vibration of sound coming from inside. The bell stopped ringing. Silence followed, but not the empty kind. This silence felt structured, disciplined, like a classroom waiting for instruction. Through the glass of classroom C3, Somchai saw the students rise from their seats at the exact same time. Their movements were stiff, synchronized, rehearsed beyond human precision. Chairs slid back in perfect alignment. No one spoke, no one looked around. They faced the front. The faceless teacher stood at the blackboard. White chalk lifted itself from the tray and wrote without a hand guiding it. Attendance. One by one, names appeared on the board, written in sharp, deliberate strokes. Somchai recognized several from the gradebook. Each name, once written, was followed by a soft response, dozens of voices answering in unison. Here. 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 The sound was wrong, too flat, too hollow, as if the word had been practiced long after its meaning had faded. Somchai's chest tightened as he counted silently. 35. 36. 37. The writing stopped. The teacher tilted her head, just slightly, toward the classroom door. An empty desk sat near the back row. Somchai hadn't noticed it before. Unlike the others, its surface was clean, untouched. Waiting. The chalk moved again. Present. 37 of 38. A pause. Then the teacher turned, not fully, but enough that the dark void of her face aligned with the window. With Somchai, though she had no eyes, he knew with terrifying certainty that she was looking directly at him. The intercom crackled throughout the building. Attendance is incomplete, her voice said calmly. A student is missing. The students turned their heads in perfect unison. Their faces were pale, their expressions blank, but their eyes, those were wrong. Too bright, too aware. They stared past the glass, past the chains, past the years that separated them from the living. They stared at Somchai. His radio fell from his hand, clattering loudly against the ground. The sound echoed. Once. Twice. The chalk tapped the board. The final line appeared. Blank. Somchai felt something shift deep inside him, like a lock clicking open. He realized then that the school did not open its doors at night to keep something inside. It opened them. To make room.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.
Chapter 7. The Late Student. The sound came from behind him. Not from Building C. Not from the courtyard. From the darkness just beyond the security lights. Somchai stiffened as footsteps approached, soft, careful, polite. They stopped a short distance away, close enough that he could feel another presence sharing the cold air. A voice spoke. "I'm sorry for being late." It was young, respectful, almost shy. Somchai did not turn around. He didn't need to. The glass of classroom C3 reflected enough. Behind him stood a student in a neatly pressed uniform. The shirt was tucked in perfectly. The shoes were polished, untouched by dust. The student's head was lowered in apology, hands clasped respectfully in front. But where the reflection should have shown feet, there was nothing. The student did not touch the ground. Inside the classroom, the faceless teacher lifted her head. The chalk wrote again. Late arrival. The student bowed slightly, waiting for permission that did not need to be spoken. The bell rang once, short, sharp. "Take your seat," the teacher said. The student moved past Somchai. As they passed, the air grew unbearably cold. Somchai's breath fogged instantly, his vision blurring as if the temperature had dropped years instead of degrees. He smelled smoke, faint, distant, like burned paper and hair. The student entered the classroom without opening the door. The empty desk scraped backward. For the first time, the classroom was full. The chalk tapped the board. Attendance. 38 of 38. The students sat perfectly still. Then, slowly, the late student turned their head and looked directly at Somchai through the glass. Their face was blackened, skin cracked like burned wood. The eyes were intact, wide, glossy, pleading. The mouth opened. No sound came out. But Somchai heard the words clearly inside his head. "You're next." The lights flickered violently. When they steadied, the student was gone from the window. Only the empty desk remained. But it was no longer empty. A name had been carved into its surface, fresh, deep, deliberate. Somchai. Chapter 8. The incident that never happened. The name stayed with him. Even after the lights in Building C shut off. Even after the bell fell silent. Even after the courtyard returned to its hollow stillness. Somchai. Carved deep into the desk. That morning, long after his shift ended, Somchai went somewhere he had never bothered to visit before, the old storage room beneath the main administrative office. It was a place no one used anymore, filled with broken furniture and boxes labeled obsolete. Dust coated everything, silence pressed down hard. He searched for hours before he found it. A rusted filing cabinet pushed against the far wall, half collapsed under its own weight. Most drawers were empty. One was jammed shut. It took effort, too much effort, to pull it open. Inside were folders bound with twine. No titles. No dates. Just numbers. He untied the first bundle. Newspaper clippings slid out, yellowed and brittle. Headlines in bold Thai script spoke of a small electrical fire in a school building 15 years ago. The articles were short, vague, no photos, no names. According to official reports, the fire had been contained quickly. No casualties, minimal damage. Somchai felt his stomach twist. He opened the next folder. Police reports, incomplete, pages missing, witness statements crossed out and rewritten, names replaced with black ink, entire paragraphs redacted so thoroughly that the paper itself was scarred. Then came the third folder. Handwritten notes. They belonged to a teacher. The handwriting grew messier with each page, as if written under growing pressure. They shouldn't be here at night. The building isn't safe. The students begged to stay and study. I didn't want to turn them away. The final entry was dated the same night as the fire. Attendance: 38 students present. Somchai's hands trembled. There were no evacuation records. No hospital transfers. No death certificates. The incident had been buried, not because no one died, but because everyone did. That night, as Somchai returned to the courtyard, he noticed something new etched into the wall near Building C. 38 short lines, and one longer mark beneath them. Fresh. Waiting.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.
Chapter 9. The Dismissal Bell. 1:15 a.m. The bell rang again. This time, it was different. Longer, deeper. The sound dragged itself across the courtyard, vibrating through concrete, glass, and bone. It wasn't the sharp signal of a class beginning. It was heavier, final. The dismissal bell. Somchai stood frozen near the edge of Building C, his eyes fixed on the classroom windows. Inside, the students rose from their desks in perfect unison. Their chairs slid back with a single, unified scrape that made his teeth ache. They did not rush. They did not speak. They simply stood there, facing forward, waiting. The faceless teacher remained at the front of the room. She did not move. The void where her face should have been seemed deeper now, as if absorbing the dim light around it. Slowly, she raised one hand. The students turned. All of them. They turned toward Somchai. Their eyes were wide, colorless, reflecting the fluorescent glow like polished glass. Their expressions were empty, not angry, not sad, just patient. Expectant. The intercom crackled to life across the courtyard. Dismissal is delayed, the teacher's voice announced calmly. One individual remains unaccounted for. Somchai stepped back instinctively. His heel struck the pavement, but the sound didn't echo this time. It was swallowed immediately, as though the night itself refused to acknowledge it. Inside the classroom, one student lifted an arm. A finger extended, pointing at him. Then another. And another. Soon, every arm in the room was raised. Fingers aimed unerringly through glass and darkness, aimed at Somchai. The chalk wrote again on the blackboard. Reason for remaining on school grounds after death. Somchai shook his head, whispering to himself, I'm not a student. I don't belong here. The teacher tilted her head slightly. No one ever thinks they do, she replied. The classroom doors began to open. Not outward. Inward, stretching wider than their frames allowed, revealing a darkness far deeper than the hallway behind them. Cold air poured out, carrying the smell of smoke and scorched paper. Somchai turned and ran. The courtyard seemed longer than before. The gate farther away, the ground uneven beneath his feet, as if the school itself was resisting his escape. Behind him, footsteps followed. Dozens of them. Slow. Measured. Unhurried. Because they knew something Somchai didn't. The dismissal bell wasn't signaling the end of class. It was signaling that someone was about to stay. Chapter 10. A new name in red ink. Somchai didn't remember how he made it out. One moment, he was running through the courtyard, lungs burning, footsteps echoing behind him. The next, he was slumped inside the guard room, the door shut, the fluorescent light buzzing weakly overhead. Silence. Real silence. No bells. No footsteps. No voices. His hands were shaking so badly that he had to sit on the floor to keep from falling over. The radio lay where he had dropped it earlier. Its battery dead, the intercom above the door was dark, lifeless, as if it had never spoken at all. For a moment, Somchai allowed himself to believe it was over. Then he saw the gradebook. It was open on the desk. He was certain, absolutely certain, that he had left it closed. Locked away beneath the shelf. Yet there it was, lying flat, its pages turned to the final section. The paper looked newer here. Less yellowed, as if it had been waiting all along for this part to be written. The ink was still wet. Somchai leaned closer, his breath catching painfully in his throat. A new name had been added. Written in red. Somchai Fanawat. Below it was a student number he did not recognize. Neatly assigned. Official. In the attendance column beside his name were several filled circles already marked. One for each night he had worked the shift. Present. 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 His knees gave out. At the far end of the page, a ruler straight line waited beside his name. Not crossed out. Not yet. The bell rang softly in the distance. Barely audible, like a reminder rather than a call. Somchai flipped backward through the pages in desperation. The older names, the red ones that had been crossed out, now seemed clearer. Familiar. Each belonged to someone who had vanished quietly over the years. A substitute teacher. A janitor. A night watchman before him. All of them had stayed late. All of them had been recorded. His vision blurred as he reached the inside cover of the book. Written there, in the same careful handwriting as the attendance records, was a single rule. No one leaves before dismissal. Somchai closed the book. But the weight of it did not disappear. Because somewhere beyond the walls of the guard room, Building C was awake again. And this time, it knew his name.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.
Chapter 11. The Last Shift. Somchai didn't go home. There was no point. When dawn came, he walked straight to the administrative office, clutching the grade book beneath his arm like evidence, like proof that what he had seen was real. The office smelled of disinfectant and old air conditioning. Morning staff moved around him. Busy, half awake, unaware. He approached the front desk. I need to file a report, Somchai said. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. Distant, like it had traveled a long way to reach him. The woman behind the desk glanced up, confused. A report about what? About Building C, about the night classes. About the students, he said quickly. I work here, night security. You should have my file. The woman frowned and began typing. Her fingers paused. She typed again, slower this time. There's no record of you, she said. Somchai laughed weakly. That's not possible. I've worked here for weeks. She turned the monitor slightly toward him. Empty fields. No name. No ID number. No employment history. He felt the floor tilt beneath his feet. Another administrator was called over. Then another. They searched older databases, paper archives, even handwritten logs. Nothing. One of them finally shook his head. "Sir, are you sure you're at the right school?" Sanchai left without another word. Outside, students passed through him without noticing. A teacher brushed his shoulder and didn't react. For a terrifying second, Sanchai wondered if he had already become something else, something lighter, thinner, easier to ignore. That night, he returned to the school. Not because he wanted to. Because his feet carried him there on their own. The gates opened without a key. Building C's lights were already on. Inside the classroom, a desk waited near the back row. Clean, polished, familiar. On the blackboard, written in white chalk, "Final session." The faceless teacher stood at the front, papers in hand. "You're late," she said gently. Sanchai stepped inside. The bell rang. And somewhere, very far away, the world he belonged to locked its doors for the night. Chapter 12. The empty desk is no longer empty. The classroom felt smaller from the inside. The ceiling pressed low, the walls too close, as if the room had subtly adjusted itself to fit the number of occupants it now held. 38 desks, 38 chairs, all occupied, including his. Sanchai sat perfectly straight without remembering when he had lowered himself into the chair. His hands rested flat on the desk, fingers aligned neatly, mimicking the posture of the students around him. He tried to move, tried to pull his hands away, but his muscles responded with only the faintest tremor. Like something resisting gently, patiently. The students did not look at him. They faced forward, eyes fixed on the blackboard. Their uniforms were clean, untouched by age or decay. But when Sanchai dared to glance closer, he noticed the details that didn't belong. Burn marks beneath collars, dark stains on cuffs that never fully washed out, skin that looked too tight, too dry, as if it had been stretched back into place. The faceless teacher placed the stack of papers on her desk. "Today's lesson will be brief," she said. "We are reviewing unfinished matters." The chalk lifted again. Reason for remaining. Sanchai's name appeared beneath the heading. Written carefully. Deliberately. The teacher turned her hollow face toward him. "Please explain," she said. Sanchai opened his mouth. Nothing came out. His thoughts were loud, panic, denial, pleading, but his voice belonged to the room now. And the room was not ready to hear it. The chalk tapped once against the board. "That's all right," the teacher continued calmly. "You may write instead." A pencil rolled across Sanchai's desk on its own. As his fingers closed around it, memories flooded him, small, insignificant moments he had never thought worth remembering. Staying late to finish paperwork. Locking gates long after everyone else had gone home. Choosing responsibility over rest. Again and again. The pencil pressed down. Words formed. "I stayed because someone had to." The classroom grew very quiet. The teacher nodded. "A common answer," she said. "Almost everyone writes the same thing." Around him, the students shifted slightly, as if relieved, as if his answer had completed a pattern. Sanchai realized then what this place truly was. Not a punishment. Not a trap. A system. One that required someone to stay behind. So the others could finally leave.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.
Chapter 13. The Final Exam. The papers appeared on every desk at the same time. No one handed them out. No footsteps moved between rows. They were simply there, thin sheets of yellowed paper, edges slightly burned, as if they had survived something the classroom itself had not. Sanchai stared down at his own paper, heart pounding. There was only one question. Why must you remain? No multiple choice. No guidance. No space for excuses. Around him, pencils began to move. Soft scratching sounds filled the room. Steady and synchronized, the students wrote calmly, without hesitation, as if they had answered this question many times before. Sanchai glanced sideways, just enough to see fragments of their responses. Because my parents never came. Because I promised I would study harder. Because class wasn't finished yet. Each answer felt unfinished, incomplete, like sentences cut short by smoke and heat. The faceless teacher walked slowly between the rows. Her footsteps made no sound, but Sanchai felt her presence passing behind him, pressing down on his shoulders like invisible hands. Do not rush, she said gently. This answer determines placement. Somchai's grip tightened around the pencil. Placement. He understood now. This was not about guilt. Not about punishment. It was about continuity. Someone had to remain conscious. Someone had to sit, to listen, to answer, so the class could continue existing. Without that anchor, the students would fade, lost between dismissal and arrival, never fully released. Somchai lowered his head and wrote. Because they were never allowed to leave. The scratching stopped. Every pencil froze mid-word. The room seemed to inhale. The teacher paused beside his desk. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she reached out and placed a hand on his paper. Where her fingers touched, the page darkened, the words sinking deeper into the fibers. Correct, she said. On the blackboard, new words appeared. Role assignment complete. The students around him began to change. Their outlines blurred, their faces softened, the burn marks faded. One by one, they looked lighter, as if something heavy had finally been lifted from them. Somchai felt the opposite. His body grew heavier, denser, more real. The teacher returned to the front of the classroom. The exam is over, she announced. Class will now be dismissed. The bell rang. And for the first time since the fire, the sound did not hurt. Chapter 14. The morning without Somchai. Morning came to Wat Sang Arun Secondary School as it always had. Students arrived in neat uniforms. Teachers unlocked classrooms. The courtyard filled with footsteps. Laughter. The ordinary chaos of another school day. The sun rose high enough to erase every shadow left behind by the night. Almost every shadow. The guard room was empty. The chair sat pushed slightly back from the desk, as if someone had stood up in a hurry and never returned. The old radio lay unplugged. The logbook for night security ended abruptly 2 weeks earlier. The last entry unfinished, the handwriting trailing off mid-sentence. No one questioned it. People rarely notice when something stops being there. Building C remained locked, just as it always had been. Chains still wrapped the doors. Warning signs still warned of damage no one could see. During the day, it looked inert, dead concrete and peeling paint. Nothing more. But some of the teachers felt uneasy. A mathematics instructor swore she heard a bell ring during her morning class. Faint but precise, echoing from the far end of the campus. A student claimed he saw lights flicker in Building C during lunch break. The principal dismissed both reports, citing old wiring and stress. At night, the neighborhood noticed more. Residents living across the street complained of bells ringing at exactly 12:30 a.m. Children woke crying, saying they dreamed of classrooms with no doors. A street vendor refused to park near the school after midnight, insisting that someone was always counting from inside. No one ever saw a guard. Yet every night, the gate was locked perfectly by morning. Inside Building C, the classroom was different now. 37 desks sat empty. One desk, placed at the back row, was occupied. Somchai sat straight-backed, hands folded neatly on the desk, eyes fixed on the blackboard. He did not sleep. He did not breathe. He did not think about home. On the board, written in clean white chalk, attendance, 1 of 38. The bell rang softly. Somchai reached for the chalk. Class was not over yet.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.
Chapter 15. Night School. Wat Sang Arun Secondary School continues to operate normally. New students enroll every year. Old teachers retire. The curriculum changes. The walls are repainted. Time passes, slow and convincing. Only one rule remains unchanged. No one is allowed on campus after 6 p.m. The rule is spoken casually. Like a safety reminder, teachers repeat it without knowing why. Students follow it without asking questions. The school never explains the reason. It doesn't need to. Because those who stay late do not remain part of the explanation. At exactly 12:30 a.m., the bell still rings. It is soft now, controlled, precise. Not many people hear it anymore. The neighborhood has learned to ignore strange sounds in the middle of the night. Phones record nothing. Cameras capture only empty corridors. But sometimes, if the wind is right, The bell carries far enough for someone to pause. Inside building C, the classroom lights turn on. Only one classroom. Inside, Somchai stands at the front of the room. He wears a cream-colored teacher's uniform, perfectly pressed. His posture is straight, his expression calm. Where his reflection should show age or exhaustion, there is only stillness. On the blackboard, he writes one word: attendance. The desks are empty. But he counts anyway. Because counting is what keeps the room real. Because as long as someone remembers the rules, the class cannot end. Sometimes, when a student dreams of staying late at school, when a janitor hesitates before locking a door, when a guard checks the time and finds it strangely specific. 11:47 p.m. Somchai feels it. A presence near the gate. A hesitation. A space waiting to be filled. He writes another blank line on the board. And waits. Because the night school does not need many students. It only needs one. If you ever find yourself near a school after midnight, and you hear a bell ring when it shouldn't, do not answer it. Some classes are not meant to be dismissed. Some teachers never leave. And some names are written only once. In red ink. Because night school does not need many students. It only needs one.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.